We're going to look at Wales against Australia.
Yeah.
This game taking place in the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, 5:30pm on Saturday evening, GMT. Mike Adamson of the Scotland Rugby Union, inexplicably in charge, and Mathieu Reynal and Nika Amushikeli, the Georgian official, is taking part as AR, and then Marius Jonker of the South African Rugby Union is the TMO. Gee whiz, that Mike Adamson Marius Jonker combination could be absolutely brutal in this one. So obviously the colour of this game, first and foremost, is just that both sides are wildly out of form.
That's true.
But they have had some absolute humdingers in recent times.
They have.
I did enjoy their World Cup pool match, and prior to that the Wallabies had a real Indian sign over Gatland's Wales for years and years.
And as such they do have a winning record, much like, as you say, all the Southern Hemisphere giants tend to. They've won 30, Wales have won 12, and there's been one draw between these teams historically. Of the 27 matches played in Wales, however, the Wallabies have won 17 to Wales's 9, and there's that one draw also happened in Wales there. So some interesting colour there. They will be competing for the James Bevan Trophy, which has been in existence since 2007 in one of the many made up trophies that get handed out for random test matches. This is one of them. In the first 70 years of the clash, Wales won 6 of their 8 matches, and then over the next 10 years it was fairly even. But since the first World Cup in 87, Australia has been pretty dominant with a win rate of 24 wins to 4. So it's just very limited Welsh wins over the Wallabies. They did get one at the World Cup. They did, and they are at home here. They're definitely moving on in that regard. We're going to start by looking at the game from their point of view. Obviously, this is the fourth of a really tough sequence of games they set up for themselves, which they are blessed to have any wins in, but they do. Yes, they managed to win pretty well on the scoreboard despite being comprehensively the second best team on the pitch last week. They will be hoping to be the best team on the pitch this week. And to be fair, I think the team they've named this week is a better team than they named.
They've made some adjustments. Will Rowlands is out of there. Wyn Jones is in at loosehead. Ryan Elias, Thomas Francis. That is their best at the minute. Minus Ken Owens, that's their first choice front row. Adam Beard and Seb Davis, who has been, to be fair to him, one of the bright sparks this November. And good to see Rowlands just wasn't hanging at all at test level.
He's out through injury, but
wasn't hanging at all. And unfortunately for him, Ellis Jenkins and Tane Basham have both been very good.
True.
And good to see Aaron Wainwright back in there. We know he can be good too. It sets up a very good back row matchup. And if Jenkins and Basham can each put on the performances that they had against South Africa and New Zealand respectively, you could all of a sudden have a really explosive, dynamic back row.
Up against a rare hooperless Australia back row as well.
That's right, and they've stuck with Thomas Williams, dubiously enough, and then they've gone with Dan Biggar at 10. Halaholo and Tompkins, their best offensive centre partnership.
That's a better shout.
Tompkins deserves to keep his jersey purely because even when he's been beaten up, he keeps on going.
He does,
and finds a play towards the tail end of the game, as he did last week.
He's a good passer for them. He's a good avenue for them to find the outside, and Halaholo is plenty physical as well. I think it's a good pairing, and I hope they go well.
And if you ask any Welshman what the Lions back three should have been, it's Josh Adams, Louis Rees-Zammit and Liam Williams. You'll find that's a bloody good back three. It is
a very good back three. It's good to see Josh Adams back out there. Obviously he had been named at 13 for last week and then had to pull out just prior to kick-off, and obviously they could have done with him.
And Johnny McNichol back on their bench.
That's dead right. He was dead wrong to be out of there after that All Blacks game. He was good in both the All Blacks game and the South Africa game, and then he was inexplicably out, but he's back in. So he's been good for them, and that is good impact.
It's a heck of a back three stocks they got going now, the Welsh, in terms in that sense. They should be more clinical. I want to see this Welsh offense. I want to see it come back, and a big part of that has to do with the loose forwards. What they were doing so well in the Six Nations was using their big forward carriers a little wider to find space for their fast guys on the edge.
Beard, get out there.
The style of play that they've been doing in this November so far has been a little rudimentary. It's been almost Japanese in terms of they're just kind of flashing it wide with no real deception and no inside option, and hence teams like the All Blacks can read it on the outside. The Wallabies will dial in something similar, an outside kind of blitz trying to pick off a pass. Wales need to have those inside options, and I think the balance of having Halaholo and Tompkins in there should definitely give them that, because both of those guys are a threat.
Yes, they can tuck and run if it's on. They have a good running game.
Step you if you don't commit. So I definitely love the balance of this backline, and I want to see this Welsh offense offense get back to doing what it does best.
The two halfbacks will need to be like night and day from last week, because both of them were very, very poor, including Biggar. Like Biggar was a dialed out Biggar, which is a rare enough sight, but it was his worst showing that I've seen in quite a while against Fiji. So they're giving them both a go again to make amends in this one.
Well, it was Hardy, wasn't it, at 9 last week, and
sorry,
he had
it was.
a shocker.
Williams came in.
Yeah.
But Biggar was the one who had a real shocker. Like his boot was off, and it was askew. His passing game was off, and then it just looked like his temperament was off. They weren't reading the game well. Like when they were playing against 13 men, they were going through 2 phases and then dropping it on the toe inexplicably, and you're like, what are you doing? Like it was just weird non-rugby sense going on from really sensible rugby players in that, and you'd like to see their read coming. And like if you're talking about being clinical, it involves reading the game a bit more. They were kind of, I don't know what game they were looking at last week, but it was a little bit off, and so they need to kind of find their mojo.
Exactly, and dial in some contact winning to set things up. But Beard as a pivot, Ellis Jenkins and the like as pivots, guys who can sit down the defence, so important just to open up the space. And all they need is little one-on-one matchups on the edge in enough space, and you could see that they worked that to such great effect in the Six Nations, where be it off set piece or off 2 or 3 phase plays, they worked it to the edge. They had an inside threat, and you could see it exemplified against Scotland. You know, Beard sitting down a couple of defenders, and then all of a sudden getting the pass away. And all they worked was 5 metres in the tram line for Louis Rees-Zammit, and that was a try.
Yeah,
and that's the joy of it. And we saw him do that last week. Josh Adams can do that. Liam Williams can do that. They have elite talent out there, and even in Tompkins and Halaholo, they've got wonderful offensive talent. So just putting enough little systems in place and just having enough of a threat on the inside that the Wallabies can't overcommit on the edge, that you can then find that those seams in that room can turn the offense around. And then the other part of it that's vitally important is on the defensive end. They should be excited about what has been a mess of an Aussie offense.
Yes, indeed. They don't have to face this resurgent Aussie offense with your Quade Coopers and Karevis and Korobettis. They actually have the kind of beach version, you know, the ones that rock up kind of in their togs, ready to just play a bit of some touch rugby on the beach is fine. Kurtley Beale has definitely looked in that form, and it's unfortunate for Oz, but it is a chance for Wales to kind of apply some pressure and force them into disjointed errors and force them into kicks and drops, which we saw plenty of over this autumn so far.
And we saw Wales, probably their best strength. You look at Basham and Jenkins, has been just those kind of strip plays in the contact. Some of their best plays have been turnover plays that they've generated, and obviously that's another great opportunity to get your fast attackers into the game.
Dead right.
And the Wallabies, if they're playing a little loose, if they're carrying poorly, that's where Wales could go to work. And I'd love to see a big performance from Basham and Jenkins to dominate that contact area.
Definitely true. They need to be much better in the collisions than they've been all autumn long. They need to kind of dial that in, all of those back rowers. But then similarly, actually, Wyn Jones is the one I'm looking at, because last week we were denied the great Wallaby tight heads that they have found over the last couple of years, because they were both out for the Twickenham test, and it was a bit of a dead rubber in the scrum a lot of the time. Although Slipper did well. Slipper is captain from Loosehead, and he'll have to go well again on the switch, but Tupou is back in at tight head crucially for them. And Wyn Jones is the man who will be opposite him, and that is a big test for the Lion, because Tupou is fairly monstrous, and that scrum behind him as well. Like Arnold and Rodda have been pretty loose in the loose, but they are big units, and they are a big engine room.
And
it's a mighty scrum.
Every single one of those back rowers, Leota, Samu and Valentini, have been routinely winning contacts in the carry. You look at Valentini,
they're a bigger back row unit now that with Hooper out, because just in terms of mass
it's a huge pack. It's a much bigger pack than Wales have in terms of explosivity in the carry, and it's a big job for the Welsh team to stand up and make tackles a bit like they did against South Africa, to not be miserly and to front up to the challenge. That's massively important, and I'll be curious to see if they can do that on the defensive end, manage the set piece, and then just win it with offense, because the Wallaby offense hasn't been great.
Flash back to that Six Nations that you won not too long ago, lads. And
overload Icky Tau, get the better of him, find your boy Zammit and your boy Adams in a bit of space with a Liam Williams in there,
with either Daugunu or Callaway, whoever. Like, it's a good matchup for the player with the ball in those circumstances. So to try and be the wide team, try and get guys like Liam Williams as involved as he can be to try and unlock those wider channels for them. And it'd be nice to see them play with a bit of aplomb and a bit of tempo, a bit of verve to finish what has been and still a positive year, given that they won the Six Nations. You're never going to win the Six Nations and have it be a bad year, but they're flirting with that with their recent
they're coming as close as he can come.
It's been a weird game of a year of two halves for them, really,
Yeah.
and it would be nice if they could sign it off with a home win for their fans against a top level side, against a team that they do tend to struggle with. But it's like they should probably fancy just having the edge there in that back line and being true to what was very good about Pivac's style, both with Scarlets and in the Six Nations with Wales this
getting
year.
hungry about attacking and folding into your shape quickly on the inside, being dynamic to open up the outside.
Yeah.
And bringing those inside wingers in, trying to get an edge up on JOC.
Yeah.
All
Same
of that
as
stuff.
if you can do even parts of that, the crowd will be way on side, because that crowd is so loud and wonderful in the Principality, and it's like they're certainly the most tuneful crowd in World Rugby to my mind as well, just in terms of the anthems. But it doesn't take much for them to get right behind Wales here, so if they can make it scrappy and competitive in the contact area first, which they do just have to tidy up, just be there for some of the contacts, because like they weren't for the first half of the Fiji game. It was only Liam Williams was winning contacts. None of them won any contacts, so it's like win some contacts, then get your good attacking players on the ball and run at them. Take on this hodgepodge Wallaby side that they've rocked up to Europe with and make them pay for it. And Cardiff should be an absolute kind of very, very tough cauldron of a place to come. And
except for the fact that they're getting so used to losing.
Indeed, this is it. They need to rediscover that. Back-to-back wins to end their year would be a good kind of way to kind of remove some of that kind of negative things. Yes, you lost to 3 of the Rugby Championship teams. Let's not make it a clean sweep. The inverse Grand Slam. That would not be a good way to sign off.
Indeed. And from a Wallaby point of view, it's a similar scenario where they came into this European tour with a 5-game win streak, a very rare thing for a team that has to play the teams that they play every year. And now they're staring down the barrel of rocking up to the UK and losing, bam, Scotland, England, Wales. That, if I don't care who you are, that is a sore one.
It is.
For a former colonial team as well, like the Aussies, they don't like the Brits at the best of times. That is true. A sore one to take for a team that thinks of themselves as a powerhouse.
Well, they
regardless
of
circumstance.
Here at 3rd in the world.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
won't be there anymore. If they might be able to nick their way right back up there with a win in Cardiff. That's always a good win. I'm not sure if
I don't think they will be able. Maybe not. Maybe if Ireland lose to Oz and England lose to South Africa, maybe. I don't know. I haven't done the maths on that, but I think that they for pride's sake need a performance, and looking at the matchup up front,
that's where it's going to be.
They need to own this game up front.
Show.
And the Valentini show.
Play a bit of Georgia ball themselves and try and make it a tight contest and win the collisions. They've been good in the collisions. Let's try and make it about that. That's definitely
not play loose beach ball.
No, and they've gone with Nick White and James O'Connor, and the offense has looked stop, start, and stuttery.
I still don't like that selection.
No, I don't
I would
either.
have gone with Tate McDermott.
But like Nick White is a good kicker of a ball, so try and just kick your pack into the right areas and bully Wales in the contact. And then if they can force loose drops out of them, drops are great, because if they're going to try and attack you and you can snag the ball and make it loose, that's great. Then you tee up Tupou for a scrum. That's what it's got to be about, is like Wales are disjointed. Both of these sides are coming in a bit disjointed and a bit out of form. The Wallabies need to make it about set piece, make it about particularly scrum.
Yeah, and they have an excellent line-out maul themselves. On the best of occasions, they do need to fix the line-out. I mean, they've got Tolulatu in this week for Faiangata.
They've just been rotating musical hookers with these guys. Like, they haven't really had anyone grab the jersey, because
it looked like it was going to be Faiangata until last week.
Yeah,
and then
whenever someone has a run of games in it, they end up having one game where they just botch every line out and throw 7-pointers away a lot of the time.
Indeed, so they need to be more cautious in that set piece. But you're right, Wales were bullied by the Fijian pack last week. 14 Fijian men owned every contact against them. This Wallaby side is big and strong and tough, and managed to bully the Springboks earlier in the year. If they can dial some of that in, you're right, there's no Koroibete, there's no Karevi, there's no Quaid. It's not the same team. But there is a Tupou back again,
trump card,
and Valentini has been one of the players of the year. They need to be relentlessly physical, keep it narrow, but mind the pill. And if they do that, just knocking Adam Beard back in the contact, knocking Ryan Elias back in the contact, getting around the corner, making the offence somewhat rudimentary but also quick, and then that opens up the space where all of a sudden JOC might have a little more time to do his little dance in, and Kellaway's on my inside shoulder and he scored, and all that kind of lovely Wallaby rugby that follows from their pack being all over them on the inside.
That's what it'd be. It's a very simple kind of rugby, nearly 10-man rugby until it kind of gets the chance to go thing, but they should be the ones that are trying to keep it tight to Wales is loose, and try and be sharp where they haven't been.
If you're going to play that game and you're going to kick from the middle third, you've got to kick accurately,
and you've got to chase accurately, cohesively, because that line has been disjointed at the best times. Iki Taupaisaimi, they all need to be in the same line. You need to be on the same page as Beale and as everyone else. They need to try and coalesce at least on the defensive end, because that's the more important.
And it's a dangerous game to play against Wales, because you're going to get very, very little in terms of inroads of your own, because Liam Williams is going to defuse every bomb you throw his way. And then on the inverse end, you've got Liam Williams and Dan Biggar, who are two of the best in the business at countering you in that. So if you want to take part in kick chase ball, you've got to be prepared for the fact that the team that might break it up by recovering their own kick is likely Wales. So it's a dangerous game to play. You probably have to kick a little smarter. You probably have to kick for 50-22s or deep grass balls to set up set pieces, to set up mauls, to set up contact winnings, to eventually get your wingers involved when Wales are broken and set back down.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a patient game that you're advertising for them, but it's one that's not beyond them. Even this squad that they've picked, that is exactly how they should be approaching it. I don't know how I expect it to go, because like they have both been very, very poor, to be honest, in this sort of thing. They've both been on that end of season struggle bus, and I don't know who's going to be getting off on the last stop, but like
Wales are tempted by the idea of losing all of their matches and then going into the Six Nations as total underdogs and champions, and winning it again.
Bizarre thing that they could manage. There is that thought, but I think both of them will likely be desperate to sign off 2021 with a year, with a win, I should say. Like they're both, even with this scruffy tail end, they're both still pretty positive campaigns for both. Like in terms of from Wales' point of view, they won the Six Nations. They are champs, as you say.
And they went into the season nowhere.
Exactly. From the Wallabies' point of view, they won that series against France at the beginning in a tight to and fro one, but they managed to get the win and got good minutes into guys like Lolosio and stuff. Then they beat the Springboks twice after their Bledisloe admittedly did not go well, but they beat the Springboks twice, finished second in the Rugby Championship, went 5 on the bounce. Like there's a lot of good to this season for both in this camp, but who's going to rally for the one last show, I don't know. Like on paper, I kind of suspect that forwards win matchups and the Wallaby pack is superior, and that's where my head. If they mind the ball, this is the other thing, is the Cardiff factor. If the Wallabies are just the performances we've seen over the last couple of weeks, which have not been encouraging, then with two stuttering sides, I think the home advantage probably could see Wales drag themselves home.
Yeah, and just the odd Kirtley drop, Kirtley drop.
To invite them in.
And then all of a sudden it's a Rees-Zammit try.
Or, the other one that could likely happen based on this year's precedent is that Tupou gets caught for a high tackle and goes off.
Yeah, and I mean,
let's see how Wales play against 14 Australians.
The other thing is he took an absolute rock a couple of weeks ago too. I'm kind of surprised to see him back this early. He was it was like a MMA fighter getting TKO'd.
Yes, it's true.
He took an absolute shot from Sam Johnson a couple of weeks back. Can he be 100% after that? I don't know.
But I think probably 70% Tupou might still be too much for Wyn Jones. Like Wyn Jones is a lion, and I hope like Wyn Jones gets some wily plays off, which he is one to do, but
he struggled against the All Blacks the last we saw him.
Indeed, and the power that Tupou is bringing with guys like Rodda and
Rory Arnold.
Skelton is who I'm thinking, because Tupou probably, if he's up for it, will be playing close to most of the match as well.
Although they have an Alatoa to bring on, actually.
So I would like to see Skelton on first, so you can get a bit of second half Skelton and Tupou into your game. I don't know. Who do you see edging this one?
Yeah, that's a curious question. Is it going to be about the back three of Wales or the forward pack of Oz?
5 of Oz.
Yeah, which not necessarily what you would have been saying historically, but I think Wales takes the kicking game, and I'm just not sure about the Wallaby offense at the moment. Yeah. And as much as you can win battles up front, making it count on the scoreboard is another question. And if Wales can dial in enough of those wily goal line turnovers and all of that, just be miserly when they get into your 22, and then be clinical when you get into their 22, and it could play out like one of those Six Nations games where yes, you're dominated up front, but it doesn't matter because you went and won the game by being more clinical. So that's what I'll say.
I'll say Wales do it with the help of Cardiff and all that behind them.
Some Liam Williams goodness.
Okay, well then for colour I will say that the Wallabies edge it in a tight contest that they managed to sneak with a few threes and perhaps one good try. I'm hoping from Dowgunu. He hasn't been on in a while. I kind of hope that he gets on the board.
Big sort of basketball,
yeah,
one hand,
great
jump
finish.
over
Yeah,
the guy.
I would like. It's the toss up in my head. They have both been pretty poor this campaign, but they are better teams than they've shown this campaign as well. So I just don't know which team is going to be more motivated on the day. But I'd imagine the one that is the one that'll win, because I don't think there's too much between them. But it is a very good game.
No question. Let us know how you think this one's going to go down below in the comments. And we're looking forward to this one on Saturday evening. But for now, we're going to move on.
Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.